Hello, my name is Clive Davies, and I'm here today to explain to you how the Focus Education, oracy, documentation, publications, and resources actually work. I'm going to share the screen with you and hopefully explain to you how we would intend to actually have the first ones happening. So the first one I want to show you is just the overview, basically, which explains to you about how the process is meant to work right from the start. So here, for instance, is just an example. We have this broken into early years, key stage one, lower key stage two, and upper key stage two. So I'm taking some examples from the lower key stage two framework, which will help you at whatever level you're looking at to really see what we've actually got available. So the whole of the framework for our oracy really focuses on four major areas. Being confident and impressive presenters. This, in a sense, is perhaps a part of the framework that we really put quite a lot of emphasis on because we feel perhaps it's not been as prominent in many schools' presentations up until now. The second part is enabling our children to use better quality standard English. And again, I'll try and explain to you what we've done there. Many of you are already doing things to improve children's vocabulary, and it may be that you may not need to change anything you're doing, but we are actually putting some suggestions forward for you to enable this to be perhaps at an even better level at your school. And the fourth and final part is helping our children to be more attentive listeners. And here we have a range of resources available to you, which I hope you will find useful for your children. So being confident presenters basically is the first thing. And we really talk about the protocols of that we really want our children to look at. Things like, for instance, good morning, my name is, being a regular event in your classroom, children standing up, perhaps when they're actually offering something in the classroom, using their names. And I've tried to link that with gestures as much as possible. You'll find within the resource a large example of gesturing, body language, good listening, but as posters that you can have around the classroom if you felt that was needed. The other type of thing we've put in are examples of what we could be doing to move that on a year by year. So for instance, hello, my name is, and at the weekend, I visited my uncle in Birmingham and blah, 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 and so forth. So getting them to have that level of confidence on an everyday level. Now, it is important that the whole resource is based on embedding it within your curriculum. We don't envisage, for instance, to have a period on your timetables called oracy. We want everything embedded. So things like registration time, things like actually end of transition periods will become quite important, as well as obviously individual lessons in this sort of account. Now, each of the phases that I've mentioned will have its own set of things to do, including a generic set right at the end, such as this one. Things like, getting children regularly to say, thank you for listening. Does anyone have a question? Things like, my name is Kaelan, and I'm here today to speak about my good friend Sarah, would perhaps be a little bit more commonplace in our classrooms than it is currently. I've also put in a structure here, and don't be frightened, it's not an individual structure for every child in your class. It's simply a rank rating, looking at some of those examples that I've suggested in terms of how we would actually use them. I've also put a first attempt at putting them into different terms. So for instance, this is assessing the progression that children are making as they move through the year group. You can see then you can pick up with individual children and put in kind of why they may be struggling at certain levels. The same would apply across all the year groups. In addition, we've actually broken down the physical, linguistic, cognitive, and social and emotional aspects of talk. And we've tried to really focus on different age groups and really say this is what we should be looking for within each of these areas against their actual age. Another part of what we've done is to present quite a large number of sentence stems. These are just generic ones, but there are ones that are very specific to individual subjects. These are kind of designed as maps which could be laminated and put on children's tables. On the other hand, you may not wish to do that and just remind children from time to time of what is available and how they could actually present their learning a little bit better. I'll just run through a couple to give you an example of what I'm actually meaning in this regard. So these are some of the subject-specific ones that link all the way through. Now, they're there for every age group. We've expanded them for geography, history, and science, because I know that's where many people will be, first of all, looking at improving the quality of talk in classrooms. Okay, now then, one of the things we're attempting to do as well is to improve children's standard English. I've used a thing called talkability, which is something I've actually done for many, many, many years in the schools, where I get the early years staff to really think about 4 phrases that they commonly hear from children. Not surprisingly, me go toilet or I go toilet is sort of something that is familiar to most of them. And the idea basically with those 4 phrases in the early years, they actually model them back to the children correctly. However, these phrases become zero tolerance once they move into Key Stage 1. So a child saying, I go toilet, the teacher is expected to respond. My example, for instance, would be to say talkability. And as they say talkability, hopefully they will actually immediately come up with the correct phrase. The idea is basically that those 4 chosen phrases in the early years become zero tolerance in Key Stage 1, but Key Stage 1 choose another 4, which they model to the children, which will become non-tolerance or zero tolerance, if you like, in lower Key Stage 2, etc., etc. Now, the idea basically is that we actually have a selection of things like your girls, your dinners, and something, etc., etc., that you want really to get out of the children's habits, okay? And basically, what I've got then is that perhaps in each of the classrooms, dependent on age related, we might have a kind of a cloud-like sort of vision here. So instead of children who may be saying could have or should have very regularly, we could have the could have, should have very prominently displayed somewhere where teachers could just point to it rather than having to say what it is and so forth. Now, there's quite a lot more with that, but I just wanted to give you a quick example of where we are in terms of trying to support better quality standard English. The third area is on increasing and improving children's vocabulary. We do try and actually, well, we try to set up the tier 2 words for you that we would wish for year 3 and year 4 children to really be very, very familiar with. I'm also trying to put them into a specific term-by-term outlook as well. So that we as teachers, we might really focus on these as we go through the school. The other ones, of course, will be specific to the subject. So tier 3 words in mathematics, for instance, are all set out here. Science, for instance, okay? Now, they're there for every subject, plus these activities, which are aimed, in this case, obviously, at the lower Key Stage 2. There are other activities aimed for early years, Key Stage 1, and upper Key Stage 2. These just give us activities we would do, which really support the use of children's wider vocabulary. Just run through for you. And then finally, really being attentive listeners, okay? The 4th stage is about actually helping children become attentive listeners. There are, again, large number of charts and resources available to you that you might find really, really helpful. In addition, we actually break down. So these are aimed, again, at lower Key Stage 2, and an explanation of activities that the children could actually engage with. Now, on top of all of this, this is the background stuff. What the next video will show you is my coaching approach for children. And of course, the other thing to mention to you is that the generic stuff looked at different genres of writing, like narrative writing, persuasive writing, talk, giving and receiving instructions, discussing and debating, talking through explanations, questioning and reasoning. Now, we've broken those down again with expectations, which go alongside what we saw earlier under the physical, linguistic, cognitive, social, and emotional breakdowns that we've already had. So that is a very quick run through the 4 areas we're looking at, okay, and focusing on. And now I hope that you'll be looking at the kind of the coaching model that I've also put in place. Thanks very much for listening.